And as Webster has said many times, we must take the tool of false flag terror and we must expose it. We must break it in front of their faces, to quote him. We must inoculate the public to understand psychologically and intellectually how staged terror attacks work. Or the establishment will continue to stage attacks over and over and over again to get their agenda through. Webster Tarpley, my friend, author of Synthetic Terror, documenting the 9/11 inside job. Good to have you here with us.
Thank you, Alex. The networks that did 9/11 are still honeycombing and infesting the Pentagon, the CIA, the DIA, the NSA, and all these other agencies, because that's how it was carried out. I would point above all to this question of MIHOP. In other words, I think this has become clearer over the years. There are various schools of 9/11 analysis, and the only one that gets you anywhere is the MIHOP one, the made it happen on purpose. In other words, intelligence community networks privately controlled, but crisscrossing the agencies of the federal government, right? Reaching from the Pentagon to the DIA to the CIA to the NSA to the FBI and so forth, as has been shown in a number of studies, including my own and your work too. This is where it came from. In other words, this came from the bowels of the U.S. intelligence community and not from some crazy cave in the Hindu Kush. That's the only knowledge that's worth anything. If you don't get to the level of MIHOP, that's made it happen on purpose, you don't have any knowledge of permanent value. In other words, to learn something about 9/11 that prepares you to deal with the next round and the next round and future events, you've got to get to this level of made it happen on purpose, the key role of the drills, right? You've also got to become familiar with concepts like the patsies, the moles, the technicians, right? The professional killers, and so forth. Because it's synthetic terror, because it's all kinds of elements that come together to create this illusion of the terrorist event and the interpretation they want to give to it. All the other approaches, whether you believe in the official version, or you have unanswered questions, or you believe in blowback, which is what Obama went with at the time, right? If you look in my book, my Obama biography, Obama wrote about 9/11, in the immediate aftermath, and what he said about it was more or less what Jeremiah Wright said, was that it was your blowback, it was your punishment.
Chicken's coming home to roost.
Yeah, it's your punishment for being an imperialist. In other words, you bomb them, they bomb you. And the problem is that's not how it happened. That's just not true. It didn't come from them.
Okay,
or IHOP. In other words, the people who say somebody let it happen on purpose, this is all the same, ultimately. There's no difference in any of that, because it all assumes that there really is a terror organization. They really want to come and kill you, and they can if you let them, so you better fight them or fight them better or whatever it is. So it came out of the intelligence community of the United States. I would just like to go back to this question of 9/11 and the Afghan war, because these were planned together. And one of the things I have discovered in research is this Unified Vision 2001, and maybe this can point up what we're dealing with. Unified Vision 2001 was a multi-agency exercise, May 7th to May 24th, 2001. And the scenario for this, you're going to hear, it's basically the planning of the attack on Afghanistan. The scenario was a global deployment into a landlocked country with hostile terrain, lack of basing agreements with neighboring countries. Remember, they had to threaten Pakistan with... they
were already massing U.S. troops in the area months before.
Right, and that's under this exercise, Unified Vision 2001. So one of the directors of this exercise says, the real events similar to the Unified Vision scenario unfolded in the attacks of September 11th. And one of them says, Nostradamus couldn't have nailed the first battle of the next war any closer than we did. This time we got it right. So they go seamlessly from the drill into the actual war. So the drill goes live. Now, when you see not one of those, but a couple of dozen, because that's what you have. We don't have time to go through them all now. That the 9/11 attacks and this geopolitical assault on Afghanistan in particular, these were planned as part of the same package. That somehow this godforsaken, landlocked country on the other side of the world is an immediate threat, whereas other failed states, for some reason, Somalia and several others that are in more or less the same condition, they don't seem to represent the same thing. What is it? Is it something to do with the fact that Pakistan is an energy corridor and Afghanistan is where Russia and China and India and Eurasia all come together? It's sort of the hub of the Eurasian landmass, right? The heartland, as these old geopolitics guys used to say. So this is what you're dealing with. And my count on the drills, which I've updated some months ago, it's 25-plus drills happening on 9/11, recently concluded, or in advanced stages of preparation. So that's how you begin looking for what's going to happen next. One other interesting thing, if people saw this movie about the plot to kill Hitler, right, the Valkyrie, you see the same idea. If you see von Stauffenberg and his group of co-workers, right, they want to overthrow Hitler, and how did they do it? They did it under Operation Valkyrie. In other words, they took an existing operation that was, sanctioned and on the books and had been drilled, and they redirected it. And they redirected it, in this case, against Hitler, or at least they tried to. So this simply shows again and again and again that operations of this size and this magnitude that have to use government assets for the purposes of this private
They must
network,
be bootlegged, and they use drills or giant operations as the cover.
The other side, of course, in terms of the reopening the investigation, I think one important point is what Kane and Hamilton, the two bosses of the 9/11 Commission, admitted, I think around the time of the 5th anniversary, I think, or maybe the 6th, but certainly they admitted it, was that the Air Force witnesses, the Larry Arnolds and the other people from the Northeast Air Defense Sector in Rome, New York, had committed massive perjury in front of the Commission concerning the timelines, concerning the deployment of the interceptor aircraft, and basically lied about everything. So this is in the public domain. Governor Kane of New Jersey and Lee Hamilton, former congressman from Indiana, came out and they wrote this book called Unprecedented, where they said, oh yes, at the end we were aware that the Air Force generals had committed massive perjury, and we had a special meeting of our commission. What should we do about it? Should we give criminal referrals to the Justice Department? And then we thought, no, that wouldn't be good for the country. That would be too inflammatory. So we decided to let the inspectors general of the various government agencies handle it, and of course they duly came out in a year or so and said, we're not going to do anything because there's no reason to. So this entire official version is shot full of holes. I mean, it's a mockery. It's a bad joke.